Unchurned is presented by UpdateAI.
I think the success org does not own upsell. The sales org owns upsell. That's it. Your job is to love the customer. And once we're through deployment, they know you, you talk to them, you have a relationship, you make them love us. Your job isn't to go install Gainsight or Catalyst and run plays all day. CS would be fine if the customer, if the CEO and leadership team was very clear about.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Unchurned. I'm your host, Josh Schachter, founder and CEO of UpdateAI. I have with me here Kristi Faltorusso. Should we go over again?
I'm going to do this again myself, Josh. This is the second time that Josh has tried to
you know what? Brett's making me
my
nervous.
name, my title, my introduction. So Kristi Faltorusso, Chief Customer Officer at Client Success. Thrilled to be here again.
Nice to meet you, Kristi.
Nice to meet you, Josh.
And I'm the chief customer officer at Bonfire Ventures. What do you want? Yeah.
And we have with us Brett Queener. Brett, who has nothing to do with CS specifically, but everything to do with CS through all of his rich history working with giant companies out in Silicon Valley and more. So Brett is a managing partner at Bonfire Ventures. And Brett is also on, is it like 237 boards that you're on?
No,
Brett?
it's like,
how many?
It's like 15.
15?
Like 15.
What's it like being on 15 boards? Like, if a board meeting is every quarter, I mean, like what is the schedule of a 15 board member person?
Well, I mean, scheduling is one thing. The question is, what does it entail if you actually want to be helpful at a board? If you actually
I was just going to say exactly, like, what does the company want your assistance with? How involved are you?
If you actually want to be helpful at a board meeting, it entails a lot. But look, as I say to founders, board meetings aren't sort of these exercises in obfuscation where you put some deck together and some dog and pony to sort of humor your investors, right? A board meeting is a quarterly check-in that you should be doing with your own team, reflecting on your own priorities. You probably should have met with your team before the board meeting just to, hey, how did we do? What worked well? What are we going to change? And the board meeting should be a reflection of that, right? And so
it's a forcing function, right? To get your shit together each quarter.
It's a quarterly prioritization. I'm on a company. We don't normally invest at pre-seed. We do seed. I mean, we invest. We write $3 million checks. We lead the round. We're usually the first board member. We help put together a board and help the founder work through cadence and their own managing cadence, because the board meeting ends at the end of the quarter, which is a reflection of what your priorities are with your team. How do you review weekly with your team? How do you review monthly with your team? And how do you review quarterly? So it is a fun scheduling thing. Like when somebody sends emails and the rest of them, I introduce them to this application called Doodle. Have you seen Doodle? Where you throw out, et cetera.
Of course.
And then I think the bigger issue is how many board meetings are you in person versus not? Because like during Zoom, you could do 40 board meetings, just like hang out on your Zoom call.
What do you see? What do you see in your board meetings relate? So this is obviously primarily a customer success podcast, except for those who come purely for the banter. Sure. But what do you see around customer success and from chief customer officers or lack thereof across your 15 board meetings? And just for reference for some folks out there, I'm going to read off of Brett's LinkedIn, but this might take about 5 minutes. So he's the board. I'm not going to do all of it, but we got Pendo and Speckit and what am I missing? What are some? Invoca is a big one.
Yeah, there's a bunch. I mean, look, I'm on the board of a lot of larger companies with later stage hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, but I'm primarily a seed stage investor. So I'm on the board of lots of little companies, right? That might have, I don't know, $500,000 in revenue, might have 10 million, might have 50 million. As it relates to customer success, look, I think the big evolution when you're early stage, which is, it's when I force the founder to have different sections. Like, oh, hey, let's talk as a founder. Hey, what's on my mind? What's going well? What's not? Okay, let's go into the function. Let's talk about sales. Let's talk about product. Let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about success. For a while there, they just like put on a costume and they show up and they have to give the success presentation. And then what that helps me them explain, like if you are owning all of these priorities and then you have to put on a costume and do all of these, you're not really scaling. And don't give me let's just put success under the CRO. We'll take somebody who's sold for 10 years and, suddenly is now going to be an expert in success. And then all of a sudden everybody's an account manager because everybody is now upselling. Like that was not what we meant by customer success. But look, when we get to, first success leader is probably a couple $1 million in, right?
When's first success hire? Same thing, or is the leader the first hire?
I've published some long and crazy blog about how do you build out your success org, right? The key issue in any of these functions, marketing, sales, et cetera, is you don't want to operationalize too early because until you kind of know what you have, I don't want people coming in and building playbooks. We got like false market fit, right? Like
Right.
So look, when do you have success? Within the first 5 to 10 employees, you better have somebody who's the customer person. You need first 10, because when we work with the partners, build companies, we believe in building companies that are balanced and won't souffle cake on themselves. I think I mentioned that comment, Josh, where you get like $1 million, founder sold 5 deals, then you raise an A, we're ready to go. And then it kind of, right, because you have no process, no baton, they souffle on themselves. And then everybody's sad. And then we got to get everybody excited again. Nobody works in one place, so we got to do all this virtually, right? So look, within the first.
Sorry, I just have to say, Brett. By the way, can I call you Queener? I feel like we're going with with Queener for this episode.
Whatever.
Because Matt Benetti was calling you Queener before, and I know you guys are chums, and so I just feel like for the sake of this episode, we're going to go there. So Queener, I love the souffle cake analogy. I just have to pause right there and tell you that that's a wonderful visualization.
Well, and the challenge is you have these companies that raised a bunch of money and they souffle caked, and then we're done making them. It's okay. It's hard. But now there's new startups that are just going hard, right? And you got to go hard. So look, within the first, and whenever I look at a P&L, like, we're weird, like at Seed, we're putting an operating plan together often with the partner. Like, what about founders? Like, what do you mean an operating plan? I'm like, we need to have an operating plan at a high level. It could be 50% wrong, but what are your assumptions? You'll be like, so you're going to close like these 20 customers. Okay, who's going to make them successful? Well, what do you mean? Well, I don't know. Who's going to implement them? Well, who's going to onboard them? Oh, what does that entail? And depending on where your product is, because I can look at a product at seed stage and be like, that's not self-service. Somebody's going to have to help with that. So generally, within the first 10 employees, you better have somebody who's thinking about onboarding. And then, I was just on a board of a company that's rolling out product fast, but it's product to, if you think SMB rooftops and you're like, what the hell is this CAR ARR gap? What is this CRR stuff? Oh, is that because we sold stuff we didn't have? And in some cases, founders do that. Like, don't do that. Like, that's not good. These features are going to come. We're going to book it. I'm like, that is not setting the right customer relationship. But the other one is like, oh, well, we don't bill until we go live. I'm like, well, let's try to change that. That's not good, because if you don't bill till you go live, there's no skin in the game for the customer to like go live. And then they're like, well, we don't have enough onboarders. Oh, you don't have enough onboarders. So what often we'll say in an organization, especially if it's on the low end of a market, like the 2 people you don't want too few of is SDRs to qualify inbound and onboard and support. Right. So like,
because if you botch that, you're done.
And look, the product is a vision. It's not beautiful out of the gate. And at the end of the day, we need people at the end to kind of make the customer happy. Because what I say in the early days is they often will renew because they love the company and they love their customer success people. And then over time, that's not scalable, right? That's not a scalable approach. So, but look, very early on, customer success is really important, because what are we trying to figure out? Like, what was missed in the last 3 to 5 years, especially in the go-to-market tech space? are we selling enduring revenue? Is this durable revenue? Because all the economics of SaaS, magic number, cash burn number, return, assumes your people don't churn. Now, yes, there's higher churn elements in SMB and mid-market, but everybody's getting all excited about NRR. But you have companies that are public that went from 175% NRR to 60% GDR in a year.
So Brett, what are the, like, why does CS not have the influence of the other functions? I thought it was the VCs. I thought that you guys are the Darth Vader in this equation that are pushing for growth in the boardroom. And then, it's soufflés because of you. But you're defending CS, which I love to see here. Why is CS not?
Be careful what that's like. That's a gross generalization.
But why does CS get shit on if it really is like because what you just said right there, it is the entire foundation of SaaS is predicated on CS, on renewals, and then that the economies grow from there. And so why has it not a couple things. Respect.
It's kind of the same reason CMOs last 2 years at startups. Founders don't understand how to speak marketing or how to speak CS. At the end of the day, CS would be fine if the CEO and leadership team was very clear about who our product is for, where it has fit, where it doesn't have fit, who we sold it to that was a bad fit. So I don't care how many bodies we throw at, that puppy's going to churn. And then is very clear about this is what it takes to make a customer successful. And just be honest with it. If you're selling a highly custom thing that requires a bunch of one-off integrations and a bunch of rollout and the rest of it, we got to throw a lot of CS at that, right? But similarly, don't tell me you've got a 25K SMB product that's easy, people love to serve, and then you realize that the product's kind of donkey, and then you get upset at the CS org, and then, oh God, you don't want to churn, so then you throw in a bunch of expensive CS resources. It's not the CS org's fault. Economically, it's not sustainable. If you're selling to a 25K ASP, I was at a board meeting recently where someone told me about, we have TAMs. You have a 25K ASP, you got a TAM? No, that's a product problem. So I think it's not CS gets shit. That's a little bit of Frank Slootman or the rest of it, right? I think at the end of the day, it means that the CEO and the leadership team is not very clear in communicating, hey, who's our product a good fit for? For what segment? Is it a sophisticated or unsophisticated buyer? And what does it entail to make them successful? And here's what it entails. And then our org that we're building in CS maps to those motions and that expense, right? Absent that, you're like, what's going on? Now, I will say CS, and they're not alone, just like sales and marketing. For the last 7 years, we've become masters of our tools, right? Used to be we hired CS people like 20 years ago. I had some of the first CSMs, created some of the first ones at Salesforce in 2003, was your job is to love the customer. And once we're through deployment, they know you talk to them, you have a relationship, you make them love us. Your job isn't to go install Gainsight or Catalyst and run plays all day. And then when I talk to you and say, how many hours a week are you talking to customers? Like, I don't know, 3. I'm like, what? No. We're not all a bunch of robots here. Like, you're a human and your job is for the customers, do whatever it takes for the customer to love you. Now I get that's hard to do systematize and do attribution and measure the ROI, but we all became a bunch of robots. It's the same reason in the US, we rolled out Outreach and SalesLoft. I'm a seed investor in Outreach. Great tools. Not much different than email on your behalf out of the email marketing tools that existed before. But you were able to, but email marketing, you couldn't email to people who hadn't opted in or you'd be blacklisted. And so you're able to, in sequences, set it less than groups of 50 where you can send emails to people who haven't opted in. It doesn't destroy your email alias. But just because you do that doesn't mean as an enterprise or mid-market AE, you stop prospecting, right? So I look, at the end of the day, it's very simple. The magic number says, what's the magic number of 1? Magic number one, it says, I get to spend this amount in sales and marketing to generate $1 of revenue. That includes keeping the revenue you have. And so as an org or as a leadership, it's your job to understand for your motion, here's what I'm willing to spend in marketing, what I'm spending to sales, what I'm spending in success. What are you spending today, and where is it vis-a-vis where it needs to be? And what I'll say most of the time in success, what happens is the biggest gap is that teams are not honest that the product is not as self-serve or self-usable or as clean-cut as it should be to use and deploy. And the ASP that you're selling at kind of makes it need to be. And what you'll often do, and it's fine, I would do it too if I was a founder, you probably throw more expense from a CS perspective than you should, which is fine as long as you say this is what we're doing, but we need to systematize this as we go forward. So that's my sense. But that's just silly. At the end of the day, I got $1 to spend, and depending on my product and who I'm serving, what would I spend, right? I mean, the funny thing is, what is success? Look at Palantir. Look at their business model, right? They go in, here's a product, and then they go do a ton of discovery once they land. Is that success? Is that sales? It's kind of a blend, So I also think in success, leaders do a very poor job of what I'll call at some point figuring out proper specialization and baton passing. What happens in org, especially when they're early, is all success people do 4 jobs. I do implementation, including, God forbid, data migration, technical. I do user onboarding, et cetera. And then once they're live, I'm supposed to check in and make sure the company's happy and executives are aligned. And are they getting the outcome they want? But if the sales team the last 6 years just sold a product because people were overbuying and didn't tie it to some business outcome for a champion who then leaves, what? The CSM using user gems is going to magically come in and do this? And then, of course, there's renewal. So it's just kind of important to understand what the roles are of the different people within your broader success org are, where it needs to be specialized and not. That's my sense.
So Brett, let me ask a quick question here. So I agree that at a certain stage, you have to introduce specialization. I think most companies will start off with a full stack CSM who is managing some of those core elements. For some of those organizations that will be inclusive of support, others maybe not so. But what are your thoughts on the customer success organization? Doesn't need to be the success manager, but owning all of the post-initial sales commercial responsibilities. So upsell, cross-sell, expansion, renewals. What are your thoughts and philosophies around that, living in that organization?
I have a very strong point of view on this. So I may not share different things. I hate hunter-farmer with a passion. Hate it with a passion. Except if you're on the very low end of a market where the relationship that a rep builds with the customer is immaterial, right? It's just purely transactional. I don't care that it's just so transactional. That rep should be responsible for selling more to that customer. That's the job. And it's the role of the company to make sure we give them enough to sell. What often you'll see happen is we're trying to get to NRR. I'm 10 million. I got to get NRR. What are you talking about? You're a baby. Just sell one product. Oh no, I need to sell product 2 and product 3 to get my NRR stack up. And I was like, hey, do you have enough product that if a rep went to go sell to the customer everything you have, he could at least make he or she 50% when they sold up front? No. Then you don't have an add-on product. And what they'll do is, then we need these add-on people in success to go do it. No, you just don't have a meaningful upsell strategy. So just because the rep will give a shit, because reps look at their comp plan and go, where am I going to make my money? You don't go now I'm going to have this farmer. So I don't like farmers whatsoever. I don't think CSMs or success team are reps. They're not. They're not. Just like SEs do all the work in sales but don't get paid because they don't want quota. But give me any mid-market and up deal that ever gets closed without an SE. Whatever. No. CSMs want a higher portion of their comp tied to base. There's a variable tied to their number, and we could give them based on GDR. We can give them credit for NRR. I would give them credit for NRR. but their job is to understand opportunities, et cetera, and then bring the salesperson back in. But I'll tell you a very funny story. Met a company. We got a good rep, but he's kind of a pain in the ass, right? He's very good at what does a rep do? Try to marshal all the resources of the company to work on his behalf, right? That's what a rep should do. And so like you get the CSMs like, oh my God, this person's abusive. And I got involved with this. I drove this. And he got all the quota credit for it. Oh, this is not fair. I'm not getting paid. So I call the rep up and I'm like, dude, what the hell? Like, don't do that. Like, be nice. And he's like, dude, I sent each of them $10,000 in cash in an envelope. I was like, what? Did they take it? Yeah, they took it. And then they complained to me. I'm like, no, dude, you cannot do that. You cannot go send them cash. So no, I think the success org does not own upsell. The sales org owns upsell. That's it. And we can say upsell is growth. Like here's the other one. Well, what if I sell a product to a company and the rep sold 10 seats and then they buy 11 more seats because they grow? Who gets credit? Who cares? I just don't think success people are reps. And I don't want them to be reps. I actually want them to be trusted by customers who are trying to figure out what's working on their behalf and serving as a good intermediary and a good feedback to the product org around prioritizing the 10 issues, making sure the support org is set up correctly, et cetera. So I don't like upsell, cross-sell being the success org.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Brett,
so then what happens is, here's what happens. This is what naturally has happened. Oh, and then I just have the CRO who owns sales and success, and it reports to the CEO. So now if you work in the success org, if you're a CEO, you're already one level removed from what's going on with your customers. In my view to a CEO is like, look, each of your directs should answer for you these key questions. And your success person should be able to tell you, hey, how happy are my customers? How likely are they to renew? How likely are they to refer me? Right? And then how prime are they for upsell, et cetera, et cetera. The second you blend that with, hey, how are we doing in the SDRs creating pipeline and how are we doing in win rate, close rate? It just gets lost in the mix. I don't like it, but that's just me.
Okay, Brett. So let me ask you a question. In a universe where, let's just say it's...
Wait, actually, Kristi, what's your, sorry to interrupt you, but what's your view on this? Do you agree with Brett or do you have a different view?
I say it depends. I've run successful businesses where we didn't own any revenue. I've owned it where we've owned renewals, but not any of the growth. I've done it where we've owned expansion, but not cross-sell, where we've owned all of it. So I'm always going to say it depends because I've seen a successful model vary from business to business. It depends on the complexity of the product, the complexity of what you're selling, who your buyers are, the maturity of the organization. So I'm gonna politely say I get Brett's point of view. I think at some stage in my career, I probably very much agreed with you. And I'm going to say, having led this in a few companies myself, I've seen different successful models.
It depends on, one, the relationship that a rep has with a customer. There's some segments where it might vary, whether you have meaningful upsell, et cetera. Yeah. I mean, but like, for example, you own growth. Well, of course you own growth, not upsell, because if the customer deployed it and they're successful as they grow, well, they add more. So you get growth. But I don't know if you're hiring like killer reps necessarily for the most part, but so be it.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, we see tons of different things work and not work for a multitude of reasons. And I think what I'd be curious to understand is we see a lot of organizations starting to put the ownership of revenue in customer success. But to your point, right, you've probably hired people that were initially brought into the business to be customer success professionals, right? Help their customers with onboarding and enablement and change management and strategy. And now you're tasking them with the commercial responsibilities and they're not successful because one, they don't have those skills. And two, we're not making the investments to enable them or give them the resources to do this. Are you seeing those things or what are your thoughts there?
They don't want to be a rep. Like, and the other reality, like in the success role, especially for a company that's complicated in the product, it's a hard job.
Yeah.
It's not like people, you don't get like, it's like I told my mom when she got obsessed to Fox News. I was like, Mom, it's the business model. If you got on and they said everything's good today, you would turn that shit off and they make no ad revenue. It's not like people are calling success people, hey, I love you. Oh, your product's awesome. That's not like, it's a hard job. And then you're like, oh, I want you to go sell too. Like, okay, well, I understand the problem you have, but did you know we just changed the thing that you're going to have to renew at the same price you had, even though you 20% lower, you don't like our product? Like, click. And so the funny thing is, you own revenue. You do own revenue. The magic number is revenue. We need to generate $1 in revenue. And what are we willing to spend in marketing, sales, and success to get that $1 of revenue? I'm sorry, that wasn't the question you asked. So what were you going to ask me?
What are your thoughts on organizations who are putting this on the CSMs, but they're not enabling them? We don't have the right skill. We don't have the will, right? To your point, it's not only can they do the job, do they want to do the job? Most of them can't do the job and they don't want to do the job. And then it's not successful. And then we're seeing companies say, you know what, we're going to disband success altogether because it's not able to do what we need it or expected it to do. So I feel like a lot of these organizations are being set up to fail by design. And now we're seeing this entire part of the business just go away.
I don't know what the hell happened in SaaS. I think here's what happened. I'm old. Every 78 years, we'd have a boom and then a bust. And by the bust, towards the high of the boom, you get a bunch of frauds, right? They run around. They're like, I'm the chapter pavilion for Sioux City Pavilion, and I'm a sales expert. You look at the resume, you're like, not sure you ever sold anything at a company that mattered, but whatever. We went like 16 years. So just we complicated the hell out of everything.
Yeah.
It's like it used to be like I had Salesforce on Marketo. Marketo created an MQL, and then you're like, oh, is it qualified or not? And then we threw 15 tools in there. Oh, I got Chili Piper using Clearbit, and now it goes directly to the rep. We don't need the SDR because the customer just wants to talk to the rep. Hey, why aren't the reps prospecting? Oh, because we just let randos at 2-person accounts book meetings. Like, what the hell is everybody doing? I feel like people are just making shit up just because they can't, like, it feels like I feel like I'm Tom Cruise or Jack Nicholson, A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. So what do I think about that? I think it's dumb. Like, as stupid as stupid does. And I think people aren't sitting down and aren't able to take a breath, look outside their business and go, hey, what's going on with their business? Hey, like, what product do we have? Who is it really good for? In which segments? And then economically, what's the mix here? Right? Like, if you're on the low end, you kind of need a product that's pretty discoverable, and you better have an inbound lead. You can't have 5 SDRs calling for an AE and an SE for a $25K deal, right? Oh, and then the product should be pretty easy to use self-serve, because on the success side, there shouldn't be much success. Yep. There might be some onboarding. There's they can do digital skill, one to many, but there's not a lot of dying catches. You want to make sure support's set up correctly, that if there are bug fixes and the rest of it, and you better figure out what the SLA with dev and what we're doing Sev 1, Sev 2s, right? Like, okay, and then how do we handle renewals? We have auto renew. Is it clear it's credit card? And larger ones, we talk to them. That I feel like people just aren't honest. And so they start they buy themselves time at the board meeting with VCs who aren't smart enough, like, oh, I'm going to go do this thing over here. And, okay, we're going to go do this. You're like, well, that's just dumb. And so what I call it, I'm at some board meetings lately when they go, you didn't give a lot of feedback today. I'm like, well, you guys stop doing dumb shit. My feedback for the last 4 quarters, like, you guys are really doing dumb shit. I don't know why we're doing dumb shit. You're not doing dumb shit anymore. So like, I could give you feedback, but I feel like it's a major win. So no, we should not give revenue to CSMs that aren't reps. We haven't enabled them. And I'm sure in those orgs, I'm sure we did an amazing job when the salesperson sold it, doing the handover and explaining not what was sold, but actually the value they were trying to achieve, so that the CSM would know really quickly and easily, what goal were you trying to achieve, and are we on track or not on track? No, none of that happens. So don't do that, is what I would say.
Okay. Now, Brett, you kind of rattled off a whole bunch of technology when you're talking about people are wasting their time doing a whole bunch of stuff. Now, Josh, very thoughtfully sent me some of your articles before we spoke today. And in one of them, you talked about kind of this change that we're going to see in the landscape, right? We've got too much SaaS applications out there. Everyone's using a billion things. And you've made some pretty aggressive, I don't want to call them, I'm not going to say they're guesses. I guess you're like, I don't know. Well, you tell me what they are. But you said 75% predictions. Thank you, Josh. It's late my time. It's 6:40. I'm hungry. I'm tired. Okay. 75% less employee-facing software, and you said 50% less employee-facing application categories.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about this prediction, because I mean, like, you basically just put a whole bunch of companies out of business. So talk to me.
Look, the weird thing in software with SaaS is we can all work at different companies, but they're zombies. If they're not doing well, they're recurring revenue, they don't die fast enough. We work there as a career. And look, at the end of the day, there's only like 2 or 5% of these software companies that if we got the chance to work at, we'd be like, oh, I worked there. I did something. The rest of it's just like, oh my God, it's like, it's like the slog through the swamp while someone throwing grenades at you. I'm like, oh, SaaS, right? So, and the really cool thing, what I'll get to, is what it means for customer success. So I've been in software for 30 years. Most of the software we use is dog shit. It's just not great. Why? Doesn't help me do my job, right? You know this. Why do we have a success org? Think about it. We have a success org because in theory, somebody was trying to accomplish something, some goal or do something. And we need to teach them and make sure they understand how to translate what they were trying to do with however you navigate across our complicated app. That's why we have success orgs. What is implementation? What is onboarding? Oh, you're not using these features. Oh, I rolled out Pendo. Oh, I've got this thing. Oh, look, you're not using this feature. What the hell's going on? That's been for 30 years. And then what I just said was, like, we thought it got better in SaaS. It got worse. We created REST APIs. So now you don't use one app, you use 9 apps. What? I used to hunt and peck through one app to translate like what I wanted to do. Now I got hunt and peck across 15 apps, and everybody goes, now we solved it all because it all feeds into Slack. Oh, great. Short attention span feeder, just a bunch of channels. Oh no, I have lists and tasks now in AI. Please. It's madness. So what's really cool about AI, and I love seeing all the haters, oh, the AI boom and the AI this and AI is a fad. And I'm like, keep saying it because you're dead wrong. Because for the first time, as long as I've used software helps you do your job. Not a poor CSM who's also assigned an upsell quota gets on and helps you do your job by translating it. And often they'll go in and help you use the app. Right? Or write meaningful emails deciding what your data says and then sending it to the customer because they can't figure it out. That's something that works, right? No, software helps them use the app. If I say, like, think about using software. You want to do something. Oh my God, what the hell? What if it's like multiple CRUD actions? Create, read, update. I got to go here, and then I got to go here, and then I got to go here, and I got to go here. What if you just say, hey, Jim's sick today. Can you resend all his meetings to Jen? Yeah, done. Oh, that's cool. Something that would take 10 minutes takes like a minute, and then it says, hey, do you want me to do that for you anytime? Yeah. So then it takes 0 minutes. I just think that is so transformational. And when you start, and what I'm basically saying is the new default for an application is, if you could hire like the smartest assistant in the world that worked 24/7 and knew your company intently, it was just there to help you do your job, what would it do? And I think that's what these AI interfaces are going to do. Now, why do I say there are going to be less companies is the second a functional user, I don't care if it's a success person or a salesperson, et cetera, starts to get an application, it's like, oh my God, this is super helpful. But for some other part of their job, they got to hunt and peck through stuff. They're going to be like, oh, I mean, think about this. Like, I assume most of you record your meetings now with Gong or Fathom or whatever it is, right? And it sends you a summary. Are you ever
going to UpdateAI?
UpdateAI,
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But like,
Thanks.
Are you going to go back to like not doing that and writing down notes on a piece of paper where you don't pay attention to the person because you're not fully engaged and you're writing stuff down, and then you're going to look at Scribble Scratch and then try to update and do? You're never not going to do that again. You're never going to do that. And so I think you're going to look at other things like, I don't want to do that. And then you're going to go to your company who's giving you this great AI to do this one piece of something like, hey, can you do that? And the answer is it's 100 times faster. Because the person isn't like, oh, it's going to take me a year because I got to go build and design all these screens and then usability testing. There is no screen. It's just a data model and some answers and some workflow. Just train the engine on it. So now you can solve this problem.
How long do you think it'll take before we get to a place where you can trust the precision and accuracy of that AI so that it really can do your job for you?
portions of your job. It's already there in portions of it. Like, I mean, do you think Gong does a good summary of what happened in a call and what were the
I
description
think
of next steps?
UpdateAI does a great. I personally do use
Oh,
UpdateAI,
sorry.
so
I'm sorry.
I use it,
I'm sorry.
Thank
and
you,
I think it does a
Kristi.
great job
It's
summarizing for us.
Right. Does it do a good job summarizing?
Yeah, not perfect.
Okay, but do you relatively trust it? And maybe you got to look at it and say, okay, and tweak it a little.
Yeah.
But like, do you trust
Good
it?
enough. Yeah.
Good enough, right?
Hey, everybody, it's Josh. I'm taking a quick break from the podcast to tell you a bit about UpdateAI. I started UpdateAI to solve two major challenges for CS teams. The first is that we save CSMs 4 to 5 hours per week with our productivity through AI. Secondly, we give leaders a window into all the conversations across each account and the entire portfolio. So we help knowledge transfer, we help increase the coverage model of your CS teams, and we help you detect emerging patterns in what your customers are telling your CSMs across all the risks, product feedback, advocacy moments, and expansion opportunities. So come check us out at www.updateai. It's completely free to sign up and trial.
I mean, do you think Gong does a good summary of what happened in a call and what were the
I
description
think
of next steps?
UpdateAI does a great. I personally do use
Oh,
UpdateAI, so I use it,
Thank
and
you,
I think it does a
Kristi.
great job summarizing for us.
Right. Does it do a good job summarizing?
Yeah, not perfect.
Okay, but do you relatively trust it? And maybe you got to look at it and say, okay, and tweak it a little.
Yeah.
But like, do you trust
Good
it?
enough. Yeah.
Good enough, right? So, look, I think if you have the right data model, right, and you have the right repository in your metadata that has the content there, and you've trained it on what that then means, if you just want me to help do tasks for me immediately, if we start to get into higher level value math questions, and that maybe a little longer, but pretty soon.
So what's the implication for CS?
I think CS job gets so much better.
Well, it can't get much worse.
Because, well, here's why it gets better. What is onboarding for a product that works the way someone would want it to work? What's onboarding?
Nothing.
It's very little. So I think similar to what I think happens to SDRs, like, get on these calls where people are like, okay, the SDR and the AE went through some random list and they picked the accounts to go after. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, we can do that with AI. Like, here's our ICP, here's the accounts, go after these people. Let's just have them focus on like writing a compelling message. Or you're supposed to just, I guess you don't like me. It's the 5th try. That works well.
But you said it gets better, but I think all I've heard is it gets eliminated.
No, I don't think it gets eliminated. I think the part of the job that you have to do, which is to keep up to speed on all the different parts of the product, and then somehow be the product expert, and then get people to use the product, goes away. And I think what it allows you to do is understand the value of why you fucking bought this product in the first place, and understand how they're getting value from it, and where are they not, and what more do they need to go do. I think you move much more into a business conversation as opposed to just taking body blows left and right and trying to like play coordinator and try to get somebody, a dev, to pay attention to a bug, etc. Like, think about this. It was so funny the other day. I was like, okay, I've got this agentic interface in my product that helps them use the product. I'm like, okay, if they have an issue where they don't know how to use something and there's a bug, they go over to this other tab over here and they log it. What are you talking about? We got this bot over here. I'm like, guys, the user's right here. It's one bot. Like, if they got a product issue or they got a bug issue or they can't, it's all there. Let's just consolidate this. So I think in success, I was talking to Nick Mehta about this, that I think there's an opportunity that, hey, the same reason Blackstone's hiring liberal arts kids this year are not STEM kids, right? They're hiring them to be like, let's be first principle problem solvers. And people are actually in there kind of like, okay, here's what you're doing. Successful. Great, you've gotten this. Oh, these other people in your org haven't adopted this yet. Why? It's not because of the product, like it's higher level order stuff. Now, there may be some of these things where I think they become amazing customer discovery engines. So today, in theory, it's pretty easy. Customer success will tell you, here's the 10 things I need on the roadmap. But it's not the 10 things product builds. You're like, customers always complain. Like, don't hate your customers. And yes, we do need to prioritize the 10 things our customers want versus the 10 customers we can't sell to if we had. Yes. And if Salesforce was running product, we used to call them the clappies and the slappies. You go to Dreamforce and you'd be like, we built Chatter, which like the PR it was slappy. But all the admins are like, dude, forecast, like whatever. I didn't ask for that. You're like, hey, we fixed forecasting for the 4th time. Whoa, thank you for fixing forecasting, right? So you got to balance that stuff, right? Right? You're like, no, I'm going to use Clary because I can't figure out how to use my forecast categories. Whatever. So I think what is interesting is real discovery. Because what's really interesting about AI, and in my AI-centric companies that I've funded, it's not like we sit down and have a roadmap for a year and are like, okay, here's what we're building. Because in SaaS, we're like, okay, it's just features and code. There's no like technical breakthrough. Okay, how do we prioritize? With some of this AI stuff, if you can go talk to customers and figure out some pains, you go back in the lab. Some crazy kids like work like 48 hours straight with like a Red Bull and Zims, and they come back and they're like, we can do this. And it blows your mind. I call them minor miracles. And so I think in my mind, what I want and so which companies are going to win are those companies who are working with customers, understanding the pain, what is other pain they have, and figuring out with the R&D org, hey, can we go solve this? And then go hard. And I think it changes the relationship between success and product. They're kind of weird. Like they need each other, but they get along as well as like marketing and sales. This is like a weird thing. I don't really understand it. Right? Oh, they're always complaining and So I think that's the path. I don't think we need as many CSMs, just like I don't think we need as many SDRs. I don't think we need, The interesting thing, though, is AI should allow us to have some more money to spend on appropriate success. If I can have an AI for inbound SDR, I don't need 15 of them to tell me what an MQL is. If I can use AI for RFP automation, or I can use AI to spin up demo orgs with synthetic data, I don't need as many SCs, right? And so for the same amount of new ARR, I don't need as much on the sales side. So I don't think we're compressed on the success side, but I think we need to evolve what the success function is. What's so funny is why I get excited about this AI stuff is that my entire career, I'm an expert in how to build orgs. And these orgs, what I know is all tied to this friction that this product is a set of tabs that somebody has to translate. Back in the early days, don't show them the product. Let's qualify. Let's do real pain and discovery. Let's get them on the hook. And then the AE and the SDR. And then there's the SE who does magic, right? And then we bring in the success. Like think about all of the pain and friction of running SaaS today is tied to the issue that this product, when I want to do something, I have to translate it in my head to understand how that product works, to try to accomplish what I want to do. And then I actually still have to go do it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I think the success function becomes more strategic.
Amen.
I just actually was polishing our mission statement today as a product. And I wrote, our mission is to help the next generation of businesses use shared customer insights to guide human-led decisions while AI takes care of the routine tasks. Give humans the key decisions, give AI the routine tasks.
Like I publish all the time, right? And then I was like, okay, I moved from LinkedIn to Substack. I hope LinkedIn doesn't know. They're going to shut off my newsletter. And then somebody was like, well, you still got to write a long post that's sort of a summary of your thing on LinkedIn, put the Substack. And I'm like, God, I got to rewrite this thing. Take me 30 minutes. I have a Claude. I've got a project. It knows my tone. I'm like, dude, here's the 3 articles. Write a LinkedIn post. It's okay, make it less cheesy, a little bit longer, copy, paste, done.
Hey, Brett, we never even got to talk about the fact that you're like one of the originators of customer success, that you were at Salesforce back when it was, how many people were at Salesforce when you first joined?
I don't know, about 100.
About 100. And you were part of the entire evolution of CS. Will you come back sometime and join us and we can talk about that story?
I'm always, as long as you'll have me.
Great.
Right?
We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. This is Brett Queener. Brett, awesome.
This is me filtered.
Oh, next time we'll do it unfiltered.
This is you filtered. Okay.
I prefer unfiltered.
You want unfiltered. Tales from the Bonfire. Tales from the Bonfire. That's where you can read Brett's articles and his blogs. Word of warning, they are long, but thoroughly enjoyable and very educational. And I love your perspective and prognostication for the future of SaaS, Brett. Thank you very much.
To be helpful. They're meant to be helpful guides, Josh.
Yeah, they're amazing, long, helpful guys. Thank you, Brett.
Thanks, Brett.